So to give a bit of an overview of the Hub Office is the office for historically underutilized businesses. We promote economic opportunities for historically underutilized businesses, state government contracting and procurement that will foster their growth and profitability. The main roles of the Hub Office are Hub certification, North Carolina Small Business Enterprise certification, advocacy and business development services, compliance and reporting, and Minority Business Development Agency Business Center. We've got a business center that provides services to vendors. They don't necessarily have to be Hub vendors, but it's provided to vendors. So what is a certified Hub vendor? A historically underutilized business is defined in North Carolina General Statute, and it's General Statute 143, 128.4, if anybody needs to know that. And that certification criteria is that 51% of the ownership and daily management and control of the business is with individuals in the Hub certification categories. Certification categories. Oh, and the second bullet there is firms have to be Hub certified in order to count towards Hub spending and Hub participation. So that's part of that General Statute 143, 128.4. The certification categories and there are 4 that we consider minority, but minority is not a certification category. It's just a bucket that we put these 4 categories in: Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian. And our certification categories are sort of prioritized. So if somebody falls into one of those 4 categories, that's certification for their firm. They only get one category. So if they fall into one of those minority categories, that's their certification for their firm. They may also be female, but female in this definition is Caucasian female. And female is the next priority. So if the owner, the 51% ownership does not fall in the minority category, but 51% or more is owned by females, white females, then they would get that female category. If neither of those things is true, then we look at the disabled and disadvantaged categories, and there's not really a prioritization of one over the other there. It's usually a little bit easier to identify as disabled than disadvantaged. We don't have tons and tons of either of those categories. There is also a newer certification category called Employee Stock Ownership Plan, and that is based on 51% of the members of that organization that own stock that would fall into these certification categories. This one doesn't have a management daily control aspect to it. It is only about ownership. So that is something that we've been working on to develop our certification management process and working with systems so that eventually we'll be able to capture spending data with folks who are in the ESOP category. We call it ESOP. There are some self-identified categories. They're not certified firms, but they're self-identified categories. That's disabled business enterprise. Those are nonprofits, and the nonprofit work centers for the blind and severely disabled. Our acronym for that is NPWC. And both of those show up on our goods and services reporting. Again, they're not certified as hubs, so we do not count them towards the hub participation numbers or percentages, but we are required by general statute to track that spending. So we do that. Also, okay, I think we've covered everything on this slide, so we're going to move forward. Looking at vendors in North Carolina, these are the hub certifications across the state. As of January 10th, we had 7,014. I thought we updated that number. It's still around 7,000 as of this week, but you can probably see by our legend here, the darker colors in this range mean that there are more vendors in that category. So Mecklenburg, Wake County, Guilford, they all have more than 500 certified vendors in their counties. So does Durham, and I believe New Hanover County as well. And on this list, we also note which counties are urban counties, suburban counties, or rural counties. Um, so that's we are actively trying to recruit more firms in rural counties. We want to make sure that folks who are out in those areas, school systems, universities, community colleges, that they have a pool of vendors that they can draw from to meet the requirements for both goods and services and construction. And it's also helpful to know that there are vendors out there who could do certain things. Okay, so looking at a little bit of a legislative background, we occasionally will hear there's a goal of 10% of spending to be done with hubs. And that goal was established in Executive Order 25. It's been multiple executive orders going back to, I think, 1999 that have each governor has signed an executive order saying this is the goal. And the most recent one signed relating to hub with the goal is Executive Order number 25. North Carolina General Statute 14348 is the state policy to encourage the use of small and historically underutilized businesses, and it also talks about the reporting requirements. North Carolina General Statute 143-128.4 is the one we just discussed about the statewide uniform certification. That's the definition of historically underutilized business. It says the Department of Administration certifies hubs and maintains that database, and that's in the electronic vendor portal. And only certified hubs count toward minority business participation. And that affects both goods and services reporting as well as state construction reporting, which again, we're not covering construction in here. Sometimes folks will hear about both sides of reporting, particularly out in the school system. So want to make sure that the folks hear that. By the way, statewide uniform certification, at one point in time, there was not a statewide certification. People would have to go to individual municipalities to get certified, and they came together. I think it was 2009. It went live where people didn't have to do that anymore. They could just certify with the hub office, and they would be able to go anywhere in the state and say, I'm certified, and that would be accepted by everybody across the state. There are some basics here, and okay, so the basics here: state policy encourages the use of historically underutilized businesses in purchases of goods and services. Reporting covers purchases from term contracts and open market contracts for the current fiscal year, and covers purchases from non-governmental entities that count toward, or purchases from non-governmental entities count towards purchases. Only firms certified by the hub office count towards hub participation. We've heard that 2 or 3 times now. So that's kind of important. And reports are submitted on a quarterly basis. Going back to that second bullet for non-governmental entities, if you're spending money with a local municipality, say, I don't know, maybe they pick up the garbage or something, you would not count that in your total dollar amount. That's a government contract that you've got with that other government, or agreement that you've got with that government, and it's not something that a hub vendor would have been able to participate in or submit a bid for. So we don't want to count things where governments are getting those dollars. Okay, let's see if I can advance this. So I've alluded to different types of reporting. There's purchases of goods and services, which we're covering in this webinar. And there's construction spending, which we're not covering in this webinar. Those reports were due yesterday for the quarter, and those should all be in by now. And we do a separate training for that, that we send out notifications to folks about. So For goods and services spending, here's where we stand. Last year, fiscal year 23-24, we spent a total of almost $13 billion, and our spending with hubs was at $812 million. That was a spending percentage for the state of 6.26%, with a goal of 10%. We have not achieved that as a state. There are some individual agencies that have achieved 10%, but the more people who are making efforts to reach out to hub vendors and making them aware of opportunities, because we're not giving anything away. People have to be aware of the opportunities. They have to bid on it. They have to be able to do the work. They have to be the lowest responsive bidder, and then they have to perform. So none of it is a giveaway. They have to be able to do the work. On the fiscal year 24-25, which is our current fiscal year, this was as of March 27th. We've got reports of almost $5.4 billion total spending so far, with spending with hubs at $362 million, and the percentage at 6.71%. So that would cover most of quarter one and quarter two. We do have some agencies that have not reported for quarter one or quarter two, and we really want them and need them to get their reports in. But this would not count much in the way of quarter three, because their reports wouldn't have been able to be submitted by the time this was polled for quarter three. And again, only certified hubs count towards hub dollars and hub percentages. Here is the list of, we always have these dates posted on our website, and the link is right here on this slide. And if anybody did not receive the slides, please put a note in the chat saying, hey, I would like the slides. Can you send them to me? And include your email address with that so that we can make sure that we get those slides to the right person. So these dates don't change, and the periods are always the same. So quarter one covers July 1 through September 30th. Quarter two, October 1 through December 31st. The third quarter, January 1 to March 31st. Fourth quarter is April 1 through June 30th. So right today, we are now in the fourth quarter, but the reports that are due on April 30th will be for the third quarter, covering spending from January 1 through March 31st. So these due dates are consistent through years and years. It's very rare that we change these dates. There may be some specific circumstances that would change that. Like earlier in the year, we had a new system for most of the state agencies, and it wasn't ready yet, so they had some additional time to report for their quarter one and quarter two data. But otherwise, it will always be 30 days after that quarter ends. And it doesn't really matter what day of the week that falls on. It's always 30 days. Could be a Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday. It's always going to be that 30 days after the quarter ends. We do send out reminders, and we do training each quarter before the reports are due. So this is the training that we do on a quarterly basis. So who reports? There's 12 cabinet agencies. We welcome SBI to the cabinet agency group. There's 9 Council of State agencies, 9 support agencies, 19 public universities and university institutions, 58 community colleges, 115 school systems, and 5 nonprofits that submit reports. We're going to cover what is reported. There are term contracts. Those are state term contracts, open market purchases. They're non-governmental entities, so private companies or nonprofits. Actual payments is what we report. So we're not reporting on, hey, we created a purchase order for 3 years, and it's a $300,000 purchase order. It should be $100,000 per year, and we're looking at actual payments. So if in that $300,000 PO, you actually spent $85,000 in a year. That's what you would report, not the 300,000 and not the 100 that would be estimated as how much you would expect to spend during the year. We're looking at actual payments out the door to the vendors. How purchases are made, that could be by purchase order payments. It could be by direct payments, either, somebody wrote a check or there was, a direct electronic transfer to somebody's bank account. And it can include P-card payments as well. The state term contracts can be found on the North Carolina Purchasing and Contract website. And vendors that are Hub certified are identified on that list. There are a number of vendors on state term contract that are Hub certified, and some of them are directly on the state term contract list, and you'll see it right there in their name if it's just like one or two or three companies that receive that term contract. And if they're Hub, it should say that in parentheses after their name. But if it's one of those contracts that has a whole bunch of vendors on it, like the furniture contract, then you'll have to dig into that and see. It'll still identify them in the list as Hub or not, but you just have to look a little bit closer. But there are Hubs who are on state term contract. And we would encourage you to use state term contracts. Some of them are mandatory, some of them are voluntary, or you can use them. And there are times where it's state agencies that are required to use them, and other public entities have the option to use them. But we would encourage you to take a look at those, see if those contracts will serve your needs, particularly when it comes to the ones that are Hub contracts, when it comes to air filters and furniture and office supplies. We have Hub vendors on state term contract who can do that. Here are some examples of items that would be included in goods and services spending that are not term contracts. And it's possible that some things may be on term contract that are goods or services, but when we're counting them for our quarterly reports, they only count in the term contract side. You would not put them under term contracts and a good or a service. It just goes in term contract if it was a term contract purchase. So commodities, those are tangible goods, things you can move around, pick up, supplies, equipment, furniture, those kinds of things. Services would be like maintenance or cleaning of vehicles, janitorial services, landscaping, information technology, those kinds of services. What spending is not included, and please feel free. I know that we had a lot of names that I did not recognize in the list of folks who are here today. Please ask questions as we're going through. I don't mind being interrupted. I kind of like it because it means that people are paying attention and they have a question, and I want to answer their question when they think of it. So if you want to, you can put it in the chat. If you want to like raise your hand or just take yourself off mute and say, hey, I've got a question, feel free to do that. But what spending is not included is spending with governmental entities as vendors. So that would be municipalities, state universities or community colleges, counties, sheriff's departments or local jails, correction enterprises, which is part of the Department of Adult Correction, or vendors that are mandated by the General Assembly or some other rule, so that there would not be an opportunity to put it out for bid. Personal services like salaries, wages, benefits, personal service payments, those are not counted towards your total. Aid and public assistance would not be counted. Reserves and intergovernmental transactions are also not counted. Okay. So these are some specific exclusions based on kind of types of purchases in addition to what we just talked about. So workshops and conference expenses or registration fees would not be counted because those tend to be not really bid outable. It's usually a conference is put on by one particular organization. It's not like people are competing to say, I'm going to put on that conference this year. It's usually always put on by the same organization. Some hospital provided services are excluded. Rent and lease agreements are excluded. But if you are hiring a realtor to help you with rent and lease, you would count that, or you could count that. Um, Electrical services, water and sewer are not counted. Internet service provider charges, cable TV, inmate tuition, prescription drugs, legal settlements or court costs, pension fund payments, debt service payments. Those are all not counted. So you would exclude those from your totals. Um, Tracking subcontractor spending for goods and services, most of the spending that we see is directly with the person or the company that did the work, but it is possible for companies to subcontract for goods and services. And if that happens, and those subcontractors are hub vendors, you can count those hub dollars. So it is encouraged that we track the utilization of goods and services subcontractors. Sometimes we'll call that second tier or multi-tier. So we encourage that. But you must be able to document, track, and report in the same way as your prime vendors. So you need to know the date of purchase, the type of purchase, that was it a state term contract, commodity, service. You need to be able to put it in those buckets. And you need to be able to verify that the subcontractors were certified at the time of payment. And then identification of hub category of the subcontractors. So this will, if you're doing this, this will require the assistance of your prime vendors to share with you this information. The hub office emails a quarterly report of CAI IT staffing, subcontractors, and that's spending to state agencies and any community colleges that use those contracts. CAI, we'll get to it. We'll show you that in a moment, but we do email that out to the folks who actually use the CAI contract, because there are a number of hub vendors on that contract. So this is what that email looks like when we send it out. We provide a summary of all the departments that had spent money on the CAI contract during that quarter. We'll show the total spend, the hub dollars, and the hub percentage. That's just there for, isn't this interesting? Here's our total, here's our hub dollar, here's the percentage of the total that we spent with hubs. That's not what you need for the report. You would need over here on the right-hand side of this table where it says B, HA, AA, AI, W. Those are the categories, the certification categories where the spending was done. So for Health and Human Services, they had spending in $55,000 in firms that were certified as in the Black category, $1.6 million with firms certified in the Asian American category, and $1.5 million with firms certified as female. And this number of times used over here, that's not something that you have to worry about when it comes to reporting, but you may be interested in knowing that you used vendors, how many times you used them. That doesn't necessarily mean, like for Health and Human Services, that they used 145 different hub vendors. They used hub vendors 145 times, not 145 vendors, just 145 times. They may have had multiple hub vendors in there that they used multiple times. We have received the Q3 CAI data, and we're reviewing it and processing it, and we will send that out when that summary is available. If you have more than $0 in hub spending, you can add those dollars to the appropriate hub category in your hub goods and services report, and please list it under services. We try to highlight these red when there's actual dollars here. So first things first, look for your agency and then look to see if you have any red dollars listed, but you always not a bad idea to just double check that everything else isn't a zero for you. Um, Hopefully that makes sense. And if anybody has any specific questions about that, when we get to the point of that we've sent out that report and they're trying to add that in, please let us know so we can kind of help you through that. Leslie and I would be happy to uh, do a Teams meeting and share screens so we can walk through what that would look like. So reporting hub spend, there are a bunch of different data sources. Not everybody uses the same system. Um, and the data sources for community colleges is typically e-procurement and colleague. They kind of work together a little bit. And school systems use Link or Sunpack with a few exceptions. There are also some DPI financial system upgrade systems. I want to say, I'm going to get them wrong, so I'm not going to say what the system names are. I used to know them. There were like 3 or 4 others that people were doing as sort of pilots, but they were kind of replacing their systems with other systems. If you are in that situation, if you know your system, your school system is going to be upgrading their financial system, please make sure that the people involved in developing that are aware of the hub reporting requirements, so that you're able to pull what you need to submit our reports. And it wouldn't hurt to show them what it is that you have to report. So they can say, oh, you need it broken out by term contract, commodities and services, and you need it broken out by these different individual certification categories. Ah, I see. And you need totals and you need the hub dollars. So wouldn't hurt to be able to show them that and help them understand. Okay, so public universities, there's a variety of systems that are used by universities. Argos and Banner are pretty popular or common to see, but also we've seen in the past PeopleSoft and WebFocus as well. For nonprofits, the systems may vary. P-card is not applicable to nonprofits, so they don't have P-card. They don't have access to that system, so they don't have to worry about reporting on that. State agencies, DOT and North Carolina Ports Authority use an SAP system. And the North Carolina Education Lottery uses Microsoft Dynamics. All the other state agencies use the hub spending report system. And I actually need to update this slide. The new version is actually out. It came out in the fall. So I need to update that. It's already out. P-card purchases for any entity that's not a nonprofit, they use the Bank of America's Works system to identify spending in there. There's the challenge with P-card is it's not linked to the hub database, and it's a little bit more of a challenge to identify what spending you had for that period that was hub vendor spend. There are some folks who have done that and have some experience with it. So if you are having some questions, you're like new to this, and you're like, what does it take to do this? You can reach out to Leslie or me and say, hey, I would like to talk to somebody who's actually done this before. Can you connect me to somebody? And we'll see about doing that. We don't want to put anybody out there right now and say, hey, call this person, because we don't want them to be inundated. They may have too much other things going on that they don't have the ability and time to assist right now. So going through here, we're going to go through each of these different systems. So this is based on information that has been shared with us by people who use these systems. So if you see something on here and you're like, well, mine looks a little bit different, feel free to let us know, and we can try to update the slides as needed. So for community colleges, they typically use Colleague. The commodity codes do matter there. The XHUR report depends on the commodity codes to put the purchases in the right categories, that being term contract, commodity, or service contract. Tracking P-card spending is not currently supported in Colleague. That data would come from the Works system. And this is what the XHUR report looks like. There's a percent of total spent by type of purchase, and that's term contracts, commodities, and services. So this is roughly laid out the way that it is in the EVP Hub Stats system, where you would actually go in and say, officially submit to the Hub office, these are our numbers. But please know that some of these might not be in quite the same order that they are in EVP, because we, in the last few years, we've moved the disabled business enterprise and the nonprofit work centers down a bit so that they're not in the total for Hub. So you just need to pay attention. If you've got anything down towards the bottom of your list for like term contracts or service contract purchases, you need to pay a little bit closer attention. So like socially and economically disadvantaged is counted towards Hub participation. But in this example, the screenshot, it shows below the nonprofit work center and the disabled owned business enterprise. So you just have to pay attention to that. There is a detailed list of vouchers by Hub category that you can pull as well. For Link, there are some Hub reports that you can pull in there, and it may depend on your version of Link. I think I've seen somebody say ERP Link, because at one point in time, Link would come in and they would load it onto your individual system, your computer system, but it wasn't like connected in, it wasn't part of the internet. But I believe they've moved or are moving in that direction. And I don't know how time it's going to take everybody to get to that everything's in the cloud kind of system. We don't know much about these slides. I didn't actually get to clean it up a little bit, so apologies. I meant to take off the school system name on here. But this was a way to pull some reports and using Report Builder and creating a report for Hub Services and a separate report for Hub Supplies. So this one would be for Hub Supplies. And there's a way to run a purchases category report under reports in FM. I don't know what FM stands for. So where you can enter the quarter dates, select all for the purchase category and active for Hub status, and use this information to create your Hub report in EVP. All right, for Sunpack, and we'll come back to this in a little bit. There's a snag for some of the school systems that we'll touch base on. Sunpack, the Hub reporting instructions document is available. It's actually a fairly long document with lots of different options. And they recommend reporting based on invoices rather than purchases. So you want to select invoices, not purchases. And Sunpack does have a report layout that is very similar to the EVP Hub statistics form. Again, you do have to be mindful of the socially and economically disadvantaged one is down at the bottom, and it's not above the nonprofit work centers and the disabled business enterprise ones. So you do have to be mindful of that when you're submitting your report, that the numbers here, you don't necessarily just say, oh, I'm going to copy that, paste it, copy, paste, copy, paste. You got to pay attention a little bit to which set of dollars you're pulling over. Nonprofits are reported, they're assigned to the support agencies category, and they only report based on a General Assembly appropriation amount. So not on their entire budget, because they could get like a $1 million grant, but their overall budget may be, $2 billion. So we're not asking them to report on the $2 billion, but the amount that they got from the General Assembly. Um, and they report only on commodities and services since they're not eligible to use state term contracts. Hub spending report system. This is the one that Leslie and I are more familiar with, and we've been involved in developing this system and kind of improving some features in it. It is designed so that data is typically available 10 days after the month or the quarter ends. And for anybody who is a state agency that uses Hub SRS, I really want you to hear this. We had some issue earlier in the week. We learned like yesterday or the day before that there was a delay in getting the data from NCFS into the Hub spending report system. And that feeds in to EVP Hub stats. So people were going in saying, I need to see my quarter 3 numbers, and they didn't see them. But they are there this morning in SRS. So I logged into SRS this morning and I saw the quarter 3 values are there. At the time I did that, I also logged into EVP to HubStats to see if the data had been transferred over there. It had not been transferred yet. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on that. We're not going to penalize agencies that use the Hub spending report system because that data was unavailable when it was expected. So depending on how long the delay for it to get into HubStats is, those agencies will have a little bit of extra time to report. That's a system issue that that's out of their control, and we're not going to penalize them for that. So which agencies use the SRS? And we're not going to talk about SRS too much more, but cabinet agencies, these are administration, adult correction, commerce, environmental quality, health and human services, information technology, military and veterans affairs, natural and cultural resources, public safety, and revenue. Those are the cabinet agencies. The Council of State Agencies that use SRS are agriculture and consumer services, insurance, justice, labor, public instruction, treasurer, North Carolina auditor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, support agencies, board of elections, community college system office, general assembly, administrative hearings, office of the governor, state controller, and wildlife resource commission. As well as there's one university, the School of Science and Math, uses the Hub spending report system as well. And I really like the Hub spending report system. I know I'm biased because I'm involved with it, but from a standpoint of digging into the data and understanding what you've purchased, who you got it from, there's a lot of information in there. So I really like it. I do want to ask if there's anybody who knows somebody at Wildlife Resources Commission, can you let us know? Because I've been trying to reach out to somebody there and I haven't necessarily been terribly successful. We're looking for the purchasing folks at Wildlife Resource Commission. And if you're on the call, that's fabulous. I'm glad you're here. But we would like to see if we can get up with them. Okay. So when we're looking at the public and vendor facing portal, and I'm going to go back for a minute. Can't remember if I'm going to cover something later on or not, but for the school systems, the folks that use Link and Sunpack, for years, we had a file that included EIN numbers, the tax ID, and we called it the Hub Tax ID download. I want to say it was last year, we had to switch away from the tax ID. So we no longer include a file that has the tax ID in it. We do still have a download file that has the EVP company number, um, and codes that indicate what the certification category of that company is, that is downloadable. We know that there has been a challenge for the school systems because they don't necessarily have access to say, okay, these are all the vendors we're using, and here's their tax IDs, and here's their EVP numbers. So I could use that EVP download. Um, and people have done some inputting of their EVP number in some systems, but it's challenging because they didn't have a list that was a crosswalk. For privacy purposes, we switched away from the tax ID system. So we are not publishing a list that says, here's the tax IDs and here's the EVP codes. But Leslie and I were literally talking about this morning. And we've put in a request with DIT to see if there's a way to help you guys out with that, because we know it's been a challenge. The best thing that we can say right now is use what you have. You've already got data in your systems. Keep using that. I know the challenge there is that new people come on and you won't necessarily know that they're Hub certified unless they tell you that some other way. And you won't necessarily know who drops off if somebody loses their certification. So we know that is something that is going to fuzzy up our numbers with that. Not terribly satisfied with it, but right now we don't have a great solution to that. But as I said, Leslie and I were talking about that this morning. We may have a step towards where we want to get to, and we have a couple of organizations that we want to reach out to see that if they can help us out. What my hope is that that people would be able to say, hey, here's my vendors, and have it kick back to you. These are the vendors that are Hub certified in a way that you'll be able to use in your systems. So it would be fantastic if we could get some contacts with Link and Sunpack, the developers of those systems, so that we can talk to them a little bit more about what their systems are doing these days, so we can get an update on, is everybody in the cloud now, or are they still on servers somewhere, and to see if as we go through our attempt to make progress on this tax ID issue, how we can work with them so that the solution that we come up with can be worked with in those systems. Hope that makes some sense. But if you have a project manager or a contact at Sunpack or Link that you work with on a regular basis, if you could share that with us, either in the chat or send us an email. Email will probably work just fine. And then we can reach out to them. And I did see a question in the chat that said, is NCSBI in the state cabinet category? And my answer to that is yes. So State Bureau of Investigation is considered a cabinet agency. If I'm wrong about that, and their secretary does not report to the governor, then that might be changed. But my understanding is that they're a cabinet agency. Okay, and somebody just said fund management. Jolanda said fund management about 10 minutes ago, and I'm not totally sure if that meant that's the system you're using or if that was something else relating to a slide that we had going on at the time. So fund management is in Link. Okay. So hopefully the Link folks understand what that means. I don't necessarily, but I don't necessarily have to, as long as the people who need to know do know. So let me get back on track. We're going to talk about the public vendor facing portal. So this is the public side. Anybody can use this without logging in. Vendors use this to register and manage their accounts. They can apply for Hub and NCSBE certification. This way, agencies and public organizations can post solicitations, tabulations, award information, and vendors can respond to solicitations through EVP. And there's a search for vendors that uses a consolidated vendor search that includes all vendors in EVP, hubs and non-hubs. So there's 40,000 plus vendors in the browse vendors search. Goods and services hub spend is reported using the EVP statistics app, HubStats, but you can't get to it directly from here. You would have to sign in first. Okay. So what's needed for EVP HubStats access? You need a valid NCID. There can only be one email address associated with that NCID, and it must be set up with a user type of state employee or local employee. It must be active and not locked. And there are agency NCID administrators that can set up NCIDs. And there's a directory of those NCID administrators. They don't include emails, they just include phone numbers. And I believe that is by design to reduce bad actors from trying to spam them. And if you want to find your administrator for your agency, there are specific links for those. There's local education agencies has a page that lists all the agencies, and you click on your school system and it would tell you who your administrators are. And the same state agencies have a link for them, and the UNC system universities are on that page. And then counties also has a page, and that includes the community colleges. Right. So if you're a nonprofit, we have a different way of submitting reports. The nonprofits don't actually get NCIDs to sign in to HubStats. They can log into EVP to do what they might need to with EVP, like from a registration standpoint or profile standpoint. But they're currently not able to access the HubStats field. So we send them spreadsheets that says, fill this out, send it back to us. We'll enter the data in. We don't like to do it that way. We don't want to be doing that. We can do that for anybody, by the way. If you, for some reason, your NCID is just not working, you just can't get into HubStats, let us know. Not being able to get into HubStats does not mean you can't report, but you need to let us know that that's happening so we can send you the spreadsheet that you can fill out. It's very similar to what EVP HubStats looks like, and it's set up in the same way. It's not hard to use. We just prefer that people log in and enter the data themselves. If it comes through us, we are human. Humans can make mistakes. We try to just copy and paste. We do the best that we can, but we would much prefer that you all be able to enter your data directly. And okay, so when you're accessing EVP, when you're requesting that, if you've never logged into EVP before, or you're just new to the role for reporting for Hub goods and services, you need to submit the EVP user maintenance form request. And that's filled out by your purchasing director or authorized person. So not everybody can submit that, but be sure to select the Hub Statistics user under the user access level. Hub file download access level is optional. You typically, the only folks who really need that would be the school systems. So if you're a state agency like SBI, you're not going to need that unless you're messing around with P card information. But mostly the hub file would be for the school systems. This form is processed by the North Carolina Division of Purchase and Contract. The hub office does not have anything to do with it other than approving access to HubStats and the hub file download. So we want to make sure that people who need access to it get it, and that people who really don't, if somebody's only doing construction reporting, they don't need access to the Hub Statistics user information, and they don't need access to the hub file download because the systems that they use for construction, they're already linked to the hub database. So they don't need access to these things. So we're not going to necessarily give somebody access to HubStats if they don't need it. And sometimes people get a little confused. They're like, I need to do my hub reporting. And we're like, which kind? They're like, I don't know what you mean. It goes back to that goods and services or construction. If we ask that question, that's what we're asking. Sometimes people think HubSco is hub reporting. It's the whole program. It's the way you search for vendors. But HubSco is just the construction reporting system. You guys don't need to worry about that unless you also do construction spending reports. So to log into EVP, there's this URL. You click on it and you enter your email address that's associated with your NCID. So you don't enter the actual NCID, you enter that email address. Then you enter your NCID password. And you may just, if it auto-populates, you click sign in. If you're instructed, authenticate your access. We have multi-factor authentication. So there's a code, even after we put in our email address and our password, we also have to enter in a code that we get sent by email or phone or some other way. And we've got to put that in there, and that authenticates that we are the person that's logging in. And then once you do that, the EVP dashboard for your organization will appear on the screen. If you have some trouble logging in, first contact your NCID administrator to make sure your account is not locked and that the user type is set to either state employee or local employee, whichever one fits your organization best. If that's confirmed and you're still unable to log in, then reach out to this email address, pc.systemsupport@doa.nc.gov, to ensure your access to Hub Statistics user app in EVP has been granted, and provide screenshots of any error messages you receive. If your access is confirmed and you're still unable to log in, call the NCDIT help desk at 919-754-6000 and provide screenshots of any error messages received as requested. So over the phone, not likely to be able to provide screenshots, but they may give you an email address and say, hey, send me an email with that error message, and do that if they ask you to. We do have EVP training resources. There's EVP Hub Goods and Services reporting instructions, can be found at the link that's listed here. And that includes accessing, reviewing, and approving the Hub Statistics record. There is additional state procurement user training materials like posting solicitations on EVP, viewing bids posted for solicitation, entering bid tabs and awards, posting contract extensions. The Hub Goods and Services reporting is listed there, so that's the same link as what's at the top of the page. And then searching for registered vendors as well. Here's some EVP data entry basics. All dollar values that you enter into the EVP Hub Stats need to be whole numbers only. Round it to the nearest whole dollar. So if it's 1,050 and 25 cents, round that down to 1,050. If the number of cents in your value is 50 and to 99, round up. So $1,050.75 would be rounded to $1,051. Spending for disabled business enterprise and nonprofit work centers for the blind and severely disabled are captured in the report. However, the values are not added to the hub spend for achieving that 10% goal. So when you log into EVP, you'll see whatever menu you have on the left side of the screen. And it may not be exactly like this. It may have more things on it. It may have less. But you would go down to Hub Statistics, click on Hub Statistics, and for your organization, this example is Alamance Burlington School System, it'll show your reports, and we don't show reports that are going to be reported in the future. So you won't see Q4 for fiscal year 2025 yet. You'll just see Q1, 2, and 3. But when you get to this point and you want to go into your Q3 report, you would hover over where it says 3rd, January 1 to March 31, and double click on that, and it will take you in to the report. If you click on the link here with Alamance Burlington School System, it'll show you some information about the school system, but it's not the report. So somebody just said, my biggest challenge is making sense of the Works P-card reporting. Can you recommend any suggestions on the best way of tackling this raw data? I'm going to, Samantha, I appreciate the question, and I'm going to hold off on answering that for the moment, but don't let me forget it, okay? Make sure I come back to it, even if it's after the official end of this. Okay, so once you click on that quarter in that previous screen, it will open up this page, and you'll have a number of things that you can do with it. It's always good to make sure that your system or your agency is listed here, that you clicked on it and it's saying, yes, that's me, that's my system. And then that it showed you the right quarter that you were looking at. In this example, we clicked on Q4. So it's showing April 1 to June 30th. And then it shows this fiscal year here. And whenever you see a lock, don't be surprised. You cannot edit that data. That's by design. It's locked in there. It's just showing you this is what's going on with this. Anything with a lock symbol, you can't edit it. It may be a formula like the total of all purchases, hub and non-hub, or the total purchases hub. Those are formulas. Those will populate once you enter in some data and you save it. If you're not going to be able to complete your report all at once, you can click Save to capture the information that you've entered in and keep working on it at a later time. You can do Save and Close, and it saves the data, and then it closes the report, or that record. If you're all done, you can click Approve, and it sends it to us. And it says, this is the official report. We're going to use that. When you scroll down a little bit, there's underneath that first section, there's term contract purchases, hub and non-hub. So that first row is every dollar that you spent related to term contract purchases. Doesn't matter if it's hub dollars, doesn't matter if it's non-hub dollars, it's every dollar you spent. Then down here, it breaks it out by hub certification category. And you'll notice it goes Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, female, disabled owned, then socially and economically disadvantaged. And then it says term contract purchases hub. So that's the total of all the dollars that you entered for those categories above. And down below that, it says disabled business enterprise, nonprofit work center. So that's just a visual indication that those things are separate. They're not added into hub. And one thing to note is, things are not alphabetical here. And that's because they're ordered in the way that the statute was written. So the statute has it listed in this order: Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, female, disabled, and disadvantaged. And the statute doesn't say socially and economically disadvantaged, it just says disadvantaged. But typically, uh, it's more common to see it listed as socially and economically disadvantaged. So that's just why things are not in alphabetical order. It may make more sense to have it that way, but that's not the way that we have it. By the way, on the right-hand side, there's percentages here, and these are all locked. These are all formulas. So the dollar values are not locked except for the summary of the hub dollars. But it will calculate all these percentages for you. So don't think that you have to do it. Once you save it, it will populate. All right. And the same for commodities. It shows the commodity purchases, hub and non-hub. So that's the total of all the spending you did with commodities, those physical, tangible things that were not term contracts. And again, the order of the certifications is the same, and the things that are locked are the same as they were in the state term contract. And then services would be the same way. Service purchases, hub and non-hub is at the top. That's everything you did that was services and not a state term contract. Hub category is still in the same order, still has that calculation right there for hub dollars and the hub percentages. Once you've entered everything in and you're confident that it's right, you can go ahead and click approve above where it says, what your agency is and the quarter that you're entering in. Click approve, and it will fill in the approved by and approved on with your information and the date and time that you actually click approve. And you can go back and make edits. So don't feel like, I put this in there and, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this one big number that I got to enter in. You can go back and edit it and approve it again. And it will update, the approved by and the approved on date as well. Okay. Hub certification. So why do hubs need to be certified? We kind of covered that a little bit earlier. According to General Statute 143, 128.4, Section E, only businesses certified in accordance with this section shall be considered by state departments, agencies, and institutions and political subdivisions of the state as historically underutilized businesses for minority business participation purposes under this chapter. Some support programs are only available to certified hubs. When we had the COVID-19 retool grants, those were only available to people who were certified as DOT disadvantaged business enterprise, not to be confused with the disabled business enterprise that we just talked about, or certified as hubs. So people had to be certified in order to be eligible for those things. And there are some services that we provide that we want to make sure we're getting to people who are certified, mostly business development related kinds of things. And how do firms get help with hub certification? There's training available online on YouTube, and here's the direct link to that. They can also contact the hub office. Our phone number is listed here, and it's answered by people in the certification team. So everybody who answers the phone can answer a lot of questions about certification. Maybe not every single question, but a lot of them. And they can also send it to this email, and that is monitored by the certification team as well. The process for certification, it's the statewide uniform certification. We call it SWUC, and it equals hub certification. So if you see somebody says they're SWUC certified, most people won't do that. They'll just say they're hub certified, but that means the same thing as hub. Hub and SWUC are basically equivalent. Certification lasts for 4 years, and there's optional 4-year renewals each time that 4 years comes up. It takes about 45 to 90 days to get certified or recertified. It's a little bit easier to get recertified because there's not as much paperwork involved in that. There's no fee to be certified. We don't charge anything for anybody to go through this process. There are some reciprocity options that exist. So if somebody's certified in with another organization or in a state that surrounds North Carolina, that we say, yep, we trust that. They have a lot less work to do on that. So if they're North Carolina DOT DBE certified, it's way easier and a way less time for them to get hub certified than just going through the process as if they had never been certified by anybody. There's 3 steps to get hub certified. All of these things are now online. There's the EVP registration. The statewide uniform certification application is now completed in EVP, and there's upload of required documents also in EVP. We do have the ability for firms that are in areas that don't have great internet access to email us the documents and we can upload it. But our preference is for them to do it themselves. We just want to make sure that in those cases where there's limited access, we still are able to serve those folks and they're not shut out from the process. So how to find hub vendors? There is the Browse Vendors button on the electronic vendor portal welcome page. You click on that and that brings you to an overall vendor search. And it starts with just these 6 fields that are very, very simple. If you're just looking for hub vendors, you really probably only care about these 2 in the middle. You want to choose that they're the hub certification status, that they're certified. And if you just did certified and clicked search, you would get a list of all 7,000 plus hub vendors. If you wanted to search by a particular trade or type of service that they provide, you could put that in the vendor name and see if that's part of their name. You know, if you're looking for a plumber, you might say PLUMB because some of them have plumber in their name and some of them have plumbing in their name. So you may need to shorten that a little bit just so that it's flexible. So you could do that, and sometimes that works, but it doesn't necessarily capture everybody who provides the service that you're looking for. Oh yes. So on the search, I do recommend not using those 2 left searches if you're looking for hub vendors. You may want to use them if you don't care if you're searching for hub vendors or not, but this first one that doesn't have a title over the search field is a super powerful flexible search that looks at all fields and it doesn't care what else you put in here. If you put in red and you put in hub and then you say just in Union County, it's going to find red anywhere that vendors have come from. It's not going to care that you said that you want them certified. It's not going to care that you wanted them from Union County. That's why I don't use it because it's very powerful and it's very broad. But most of the time we want to get a little bit more specific. So the EVP status, I don't use that either. That's not really related to hub or their certification status. If you select certified under the hub certification status, otherwise, then all the firms in your search will be hub certified firms. You can also search by NCSBE. We haven't talked a lot about NCSBE today, but that's a certification for firms that have 100 or fewer employees and $1.5 million in revenue or less annually. And some of them are hub and some of them are not. It's race gender neutral. It does NCSBE doesn't really care who the owners are. It's just looking at the overall size of the organization. So you might want that if you want to make sure that you have some small firms in there. But if you're looking for hub, then you want to make sure that you select certified under hub. And those counts change frequently, like on a daily basis. We are continually certifying new firms. So I wouldn't recommend, if you can avoid it, searching just in January and saying, I'm going to use this list until December, because you'll lose out on everybody that's been certified from February on through December. So you may not necessarily want to do it every time you're looking for something, but you don't want to miss out on new potential vendors. There is an advanced search. So going back here, um, right down here, it says advanced search, and it's got that little triangle. If you click on that triangle, it will open up the advanced search fields. Those normally are hidden because if you don't need them, they can be distracting. But there's a lot of different ways that you can search in here. Probably the most useful are going to be searching by county, commodity code, or construction code. And there are construction services that you can look at as well. But from a goods and services standpoint, the commodity codes are going to be what you're most interested in. And EVP uses the UNSPSC codes. It's a United Nations system, and I never remember what the whole acronym stands for, so I'm not going to try to say it. But they go to 6 digits, and there's more digits that the code has, but we only go to 6 digits. So you can go in here and identify which commodity codes you're looking for. I recommend you just do them one at a time because it's not going to list, which vendor fell into this commodity code and which one fell into a different commodity code. It doesn't identify it that way. But that can be useful in narrowing down who you want. Also, if you want to do a county search, we recommend doing that with your county as the focal point, but then also including at least one other county surrounding you so that you make sure that you get a good area that hubs may be listed in. And there are hubs that go statewide, and they're like, you're in Nags Head, great. I'll go to Nags Head. I'm in Charlotte, but we'll go out to Nags Head. It's up to them to decide if they're going to go make that travel. It may affect their costs. It might not. But there are some folks who will travel, and people who are on state term contract have to serve people everywhere in the state. From Murphy to Manteo, they have to serve everybody with the same terms, same time frames, same cost. Now, if roads are out, like in Western North Carolina, that may affect some things, but they still are on that state term contract, and you should still be able to use those. Okay, so when you do your search, and by the way, at the bottom, there's the search button. You enter in your criteria. I would only recommend entering the criteria that you really need and not loading up on a whole bunch of things on here, because that's going to probably give you a really, really limited set of people to look at. Choose what you want and click search. Once you click search, it'll bring up the results. It'll look like this right here. And you'll be able to export that data. Now, this screenshot is a little misleading as of today, because 2 weeks ago, there was an issue with some security and spamming of emails, and the IT folks that run EVP removed the email column from the results and from the export. We're working with them on that to try to find a way to make that usable either in the back end of EVP, like when you log in and go to HubStats, maybe there's a way that you can get it from the vendor side, vendor search in there. But there's a lot of people who need subcontractors who are private companies, and they don't have access to that. And there's a lot of organizations that don't necessarily log into EVP to do their searches. So we're trying to work with them to see if there's another piece of information. And Samantha brought up a point that the email is on the contact tab, and it has been. So that's still a way to go if you're looking for one vendor. If you need their email address and it's just like one, that's not a bad way of getting their email address. But if you're going for, like, I've got 50 vendors and I need to contact them all, it is a little bit time consuming to go into that contact tab and pull that out. It's a way to do it. You can do it that way. But if you've got a large number it can be really time consuming to do that. So we've been trying to work on some ways to do it as well, because we have access. The hub office has been given access to a backend version that we can pull all the hub vendors, and it will include the emails and the county and things like that. And we can kind of marry the results from the EVP public vendor search with that backend search to get those emails together. It's not perfect. It's a little time consuming to do it. But if you are in that boat, let us know that, hey, I'm experiencing this. This is the problem, so that we can let PNC know that, because purchase and contract is the one that oversees the EVP contract. So if you're experiencing that, please let us know. We may be able to help. It may depend on our workload, but we might be able to help with that. If you've ever used VLOOKUP, that's how we worked it through. So we kind of put the two together and say, okay, marry up these. If this company is here, pull the email from that list and populate the field. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. When you do pull up these results, you'll see the name of the company is blue, and that means it's a link, and you can click into it and you can get into more profile information. And as Samantha mentioned, that's where the contact tab is. So under here in contacts, you would be able to go in and see the email addresses associated with the different people they list as contacts. If you can also see their individual commodity codes and construction codes that they've selected, those don't show up in the export. So if you need to see them vendor by vendor, you can click into the vendor name and see their commodity codes and see all of them that they've got. And sometimes what we do, if we're having a hard time finding a hub based on a commodity code, we'll find a non-hub that does that work and see what commodity code they've selected, and then search using that commodity code to see if there are hub vendors that also fall under that. So just a little tip there. Posting opportunities on the Hub Office website. Anything submitted through EVP as a solicitation will end up on the Hub Office opportunity website. So you don't have to do duplicate entry in EVP and in the Hub solicitation opportunity dashboard. Anybody can submit an opportunity using the Hub Office form. And that's mostly useful for prime vendors, but it may also be useful for folks who just don't use EVP to post solicitations. We do, if you're going through the Hub Office one, there's a minimum of 12 days from when you enter the data to, we want to make sure that there's at least 10 calendar days between when it's posted on our dashboard and when the bids are due, so that people have a reasonable amount of time to recognize the bid is there, understand what's involved, and act on it. So if you send it to us and it's only got 3 days between now and when the bids are due, we're not going to post it. We'll politely send you a note letting you know that, but we won't post it. There is a bid submission form, so if you want to do that, click on that link. It's also on our homepage under quick links. There's about 4 or 5 pages of information that you enter in. It's not a lot of information on each page, but it's kind of designed so that it's broken up so that we don't get people from random bots or cyber hacks that are trying to get in and try to get us to respond to them. When you submit it, this is the dashboard. When you submit it, it will show solicitation information, your organization, project information, including the URL. If you post from EVP, there's some differences here. You can put your scope of work in here, and this is a very simple scope of work, but some people put in several paragraphs. A paragraph is okay to put in here. This is mostly to get people's attention and say, oh, I want to learn more about this. And that's why having a URL is helpful. We can't post attachments here, but we can include URLs. And the contact information will be listed here, and how to submit the bid is there as well. Things that are coming from EVP right now. It's great that things are coming from EVP, so we get all the opportunities showing up here. We are working through some issues with that because, and I really want to hear from the state agencies and the purchasing directors, because previously it wouldn't list the project contact information as the direct person that is running that contract. It would list the purchasing director for the whole department as that contact. Sorry, just gotta send somebody a note. Um, uh, and so we are trying to work through that. That's actually something that Leslie and I have talked about, and we've talked about with some other folks. The URL, if it comes from EVP, it's going to send people to the solicitation main page, and people will still have to search for that solicitation. So we're still working on that. This is very helpful. There are some reports that you can pull. If you click opportunity reports, it'll show you the total number of postings. 380 is a little low. We're usually more like 400 or so opportunities shown at any given time. And it'll show solicitations by type. So if people are looking for construction, they might want to select based on construction, the type of solicitation type as construction rather than some of these other ones. And it will show disaster related ones. And we do have a disaster specific search on our homepage. And if you click on it, it will only show disaster related items. If you are submitting from EVP, if you could put disaster or hurricane or something in your title of your submission, that will help us identify it, because EVP doesn't have a disaster checkbox. Our form does, but EVP does not. So it takes us a little bit more time to recognize those. And you can also see how many your organization currently has posted out there and by different city. Yep. And this is our overall email. So this is monitored by more than one person. So if you can't remember Leslie's email address or my email address, you can send it there, and we'll get your message as well. And there's, again, is our main phone number. And thank you so much for your participation.